a seat at the table where we bring you access to the most powerful leaders in the country who are dealing with the issues that face, harm, help, or we need to make a new proposition to get behind a movement. I'm introducing you today, and I am joined by the illustrious illuminary, attorney, activist, truly a devoted leader to the women's movement, which there isn't any movement without Black women's movement, just number one, and a true friend of the brand of Rolling Out and a true friend that I love, attorney, executive director, sister with superpower, Janice Mathis. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Munson. You know, it's good to have good friends. And the day I woke up and I thought, who can I call to help me get an important message out? And I thought of you always at the top of my list in terms of when we need to get a message out. I know Rolling Out is there. So it's a pleasure to be here with you this evening.
Well, I think that, anytime you call and the issues, you don't call just to kind of chit chat. It's always about how can we move this community forward, even in our play, even in all the things that we do to enjoy ourselves. The passion and the purpose always marry. So I am excited about this because this issue truly besets and besieges famine, economic harm, and really deflates the futures of many individuals who hope that education represented social mobility and that they could offer not only to themselves, but to their families and future generations an opportunity to move forward, acquire real estate, and to actually end the legacy of impoverished situations for Black America. And I'm speaking of those who go to higher education, get a college degree, and then, or attempt to get a college degree, and all of a sudden are given debt. How and what should we think about educational debt, higher educational debt for young Black people today? And what have the studies you've done shown?
I want to get into the study because we did survey our membership. We got within 48 hours, almost 1,000 responses to the survey that we sent out in June. And I knew that was telling me something important that I needed to know, that this is a topic that matters. I have been thinking about it a little bit, Let me set just a little bit of context. The context.
Oh, 1 second, because many people don't know the number of members that the National
Council of Negro Women
started by
Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, who now is in Statuary Hall representing the state of Florida in a statue. 2.5 million members. Now that includes all of the major Black women's organizations because they're all affiliates of NCNW. We sent a letter to Vice President Kamala Harris about this student loan debt issue, and we had 15 organizations sign on with us, some of the largest Black women's organizations in the country, representing more than 2 million members. So that's who we are. But the context for this is, in order to understand this issue truly, you have to understand that in a few days we'll celebrate or observe Black Women's Equal Pay Month, September the 21st. What that tells you is that Black women take 21 months to earn what a white man earns in 12. So to say that there's any kind of a level playing field, you're not starting from a level playing field. And then, I don't know where you grew up, but where I grew up, grandparents told Black children, get your education, baby, because that's something nobody can take away from you, what's in your head. That learning that's in your head, nobody can take away from you. We took that seriously. My generation had an easier time. But this generation, we treat education not like it's a necessity for citizenship. We treat education like it's a pair of red bottom shoes or something. Only those who can afford it should be able to obtain it. And so that piece of the American dream is out of limits when you're talking about wonderful institutions like Spelman and Morehouse and Duke University and Howard. You're talking about $60,000 a year, and that doesn't get you home for Christmas or Thanksgiving. That's just basic tuition, room, and board. And so in that context, to say to people who are 18 years old, go to financial aid if you don't have enough money and sign up for a loan. First of all, they're just barely competent to enter into a contractual arrangement. And if they say, well, my parents need to be involved, they say, oh no, you're an adult now. Your parents have nothing to do with this. Your parents can't see your grades. Your parents can't dictate what you major in. You are responsible for this. I was talking to some of my young colleagues. I got a lot of young women who work with us in the office. And I mentioned student loan debt, and they started confessing in quiet tones. They started telling me, well, I got $60,000 and I got 80. And one said, I got over 100. Every one of them, bright, brilliant, full of promise, full of energy, full of passion, and indebted as if they had a weight tied around their neck. So I said, let's see what the rest of you, if the 6 of you are telling me that, what do the rest of the 2 million members think? Munson, I was shocked by what I learned. First of all, there are a lot of lies out there. 70% of them had earned a degree. 70% of them were working and paying on their student loans. 70% of them owed more than $50,000. And the comments, because we didn't just get the statistics, we asked them, tell us how you feel about this stuff. And they said, I feel like I have a weight around my neck. I feel like I'll be paying this for the rest of my life. If I had it to do over again, I would just not get a college degree. It was enough to bring tears of compassion to your eyes. So we bundled up this information and sent it to the White House and sent it to the Department of Education and weighed in on it. We weren't the only ones. The NAACP and Move On, lots of organizations were weighing in, but we were among that number. So today when the president made his announcement, I was, it's like getting a pair of skates for Christmas. You're not mad about it, but it ain't that bike that you wanted. You're not, the skates are good. You can go down the sidewalk on the skates, but you can't go to the mall like you could if you had a bike. And so that's how I was feeling. It was like half a loaf. What they announced today, in short, was that there will be $10,000 worth of student loan debt forgiveness for virtually every borrower who earns less than $125,000 or households where the income is less than $250,000. That's progress. But if the average debt is 50, 10 is like throwing a cup of water on a burning gasoline fire. It's not enough. And so while I can't say pleased, I'm gratified that the president heard some of us, but I know that there's more work to do. Fundamentally, we need to change the way student financing is structured. Colleges and universities shouldn't be permitted, in my view, to increase tuition faster than the rate of inflation, faster than the rate of increase in medical and healthcare costs. It is one of the leading edges of inflation. And then you get this sort of the Wall Street crowd, because they're scared they're going to lose 15 cents over this, which is not true. We'll talk about that in just a second. They try to make it blame the victim. Oh, you should have majored in this, and you shouldn't have gone to this school, and you shouldn't have dropped out. You should have finished it. You could have, would have, should have, all of the things that they throw back on us to say somehow it's your fault. That's why I want to set the context. The context is Black women and Black people in general are underpaid for the work that they do. And so to say that it's somehow your fault, that is not what our study revealed. Our study revealed, as I said before, you're working, you got a job. Not only do you have a job, you are working in the field that you studied. You studied journalism and you are working in journalism. You studied education and you are working in education. They want to say you shouldn't have got that kind of degree. That is not factual. That is not factual. And so we think there's more work to be done. One good thing, if you had a Pell loan, you can get up to $20,000 in relief. And there is a separate program, the Public Service Loan Fund, that if you work in teaching or you're a fireman or you're a social worker, where you can have additional relief because of your occupation. And for many of us, that will be the case because we do tend to work in public service. So I would encourage everybody to watch the news, visit ncnw.org, visit Rolling Out, and keep up with what's going on, because there will be an application process and you'll be required to fill out some paperwork. Hopefully it won't be too difficult, but if anybody has difficulty with the paperwork, Janice L. Mathis at ncnw.org, we're gonna set up a help desk. We're gonna help people navigate through this process to make the most of whatever these benefits are. And we're gonna continue to press for additional relief until we get that $50,000 that is the average debt that is owed by people.
So what are we saying to young people, given we know that they're going to continue to blame? How do we make enough noise for this country to understand that Black people are underpaid and underemployed, and that corporate America has a role and has played in a role in giving permission for this to occur in the lives of our children and in our lives?
You know, we still don't have meaningful enforcement of equal pay for equal work. If you look across the country at the EEOC, where they're supposed to enforce the civil rights laws, the region of the country where there are the most Black people, the most underemployed people, the most dense population of Black folk, is the area where the EEOC has fewest civil rights race-based cases, the Southeast. Can you imagine that in Atlanta, we haven't had a major civil rights employment case for class action since Coca-Cola, and that's been 20 years ago? You know there's something wrong with that picture. So enforcement of the existing law is where you start out. The next place is, there's something called Title VI. You know about Title VI. If there is federal funding, there must be equal opportunity. We don't enforce Title VI. You look at all these towers, these office buildings and subdivisions and malls in Atlanta, many of them subsidized by private and public pension money. Teachers and postal workers' retirement money is invested in the development of places like Atlanta and Chicago and Washington, D.C. Where is the consideration for the fact that our funding is going into developing these massive towers and beautiful spaces? Where is the reinvestment in our communities where we work and live? So we've got to develop. It's the white folks' fault, but it's our responsibility. So that's why we have to be in the business of educating ourselves about things that might be boring. They might not trend on Twitter. They might not get any reach or impressions, but it's important for us to understand some basic things about public finance and about how these systems work. Then there's the power of our dollars. You know, if Nina Turner was on Twitter yesterday, she said, I tell you what, about that $10,000 debt forgiveness, why don't we just tell Black folk don't go vote? And we'll see about that $10,000 debt relief. I knew in my soul, without anybody telling me, and anybody who looked at the situation, it wasn't hard to see, President Biden had to make an announcement about student loan debt today or sometime before Labor Day, because he could not go into these midterms. Reproductive choice and Roe versus Wade was not going to be enough to get them through the midterms without saying something. You didn't do anything about George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. You didn't do anything about the Voting Rights Act and restoring it. We haven't done anything to put Donald Trump in prison. And so, but that leaves student loan debt, which affects so many people in such a massive way. One of the questions we ask in the survey, how has student loan debt affected your life choices? Everything from buying a house to where I live, to whether I get married, to whether I start a family. People report they're being impacted in those decisions by student loan debt. It is unconscionable. And I guess the final point I want to make, Monson, is that education is not mostly for the person who gets educated. How do I want to put this? There's a saying that says something like, the best guarantee of democracy is an enlightened citizenry. If you got a bunch of barely literate folk in your population, you're going to have a tax on democracy. You're going to have a tax on the capital. because they have no basic understanding of how the system is structured and how it is supposed to work. The purpose, the reason, the Reconstruction, I don't want to get too deep into history, but the reason the Reconstruction Black legislators came up with public schools, you know, the white folk didn't have public education until Reconstruction. And when the Black legislators got in the legislature, the first thing they said, we need schools, not for the elite, not for those who can go to Harvard or Yale or the University of Georgia. We need schools for everybody. Education benefits the society. Do you know that if a Black boy gets through the 12th grade, he has virtually no, without getting into criminal trouble, he has virtually no likelihood of going to prison. If he spends one semester on any college campus, he doesn't have to go to class. He can just hang out in the cafeteria and talk to the girls. If he does that, the likelihood of being incarcerated goes down to almost zero. That should be enough to tell you that we ought to be paying people to go to college, not charging them. We ought to be sending them. Because think about it, if you can get a guy to age 30 and he hadn't been in trouble, he ain't trying to get in trouble. He's past the trouble age. If you can get him from 16 to 26 and still got a relatively clean record, and what does that do? You can't take 1 million men out of a community and lock them up and think you're gonna have a healthy whole community. That doesn't work. Parenting is designed scientifically to be a two-person operation. And so we really got to do some fundamental rethinking. I'm rambling now, but suffice to say, student loan debt is a pernicious, and it's not just Black folk, but I speak for Black folk. I got to speak for who my people are. It affects everybody. It affects low-income people in places like Southern Ohio and Western Pennsylvania. That's why you saw Elizabeth Warren speaking out very forcefully and Bernie Sanders speaking out very forcefully. That is what progress is made of. The more people who are enlightened and educated, the better, safer, more prosperous community for everyone.
Cool. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it first here. We hope that you will continue to stay on the battlefield. Executive Director Janice Mathis, NCNW, National Council of Negro Women, Mary McLeod Bethune would be very proud to know that she has a spirit that mirrors her tenacity. I don't know if you're going to start a college anytime soon, but I would imagine that you are doing it through the NCNW University and institution methodology that you have each and every day. So whatever you do, make a donation, go on the site to ncnw.org. .org and make a donation. And if nothing else, share this video with your friends if you're not afraid to free the minds of Black people and educate us so that we can have our own talking points on why we should be demanding a reduction in student loans and demanding that education is a right versus an obligation for a student to receive for their entire lifetime. I'm Munson Steed, and you've been here with me and my dearest friend, Janice Mathis, Executive Director of NCNW, for another seat at the table. Thank you.